You're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll jump in. Today we're going to talk about how DPS, Denver Public Schools, is redesigning the high school experience and how we're using the lens of our new statewide and district graduation requirements as the key piece to guide our high school redesign process. There will be break points within the presentation where we can have some discussions. So I would encourage folks at this point to mute their microphones, and then when we get to the discussion portion, we will open it up for questions, and feel free to unmute at that point or submit questions through the chat feature. So we always start in Denver Public Schools by referencing our strategic plan, our 2020 goals. And the third goal is really what we're focused on today, which is around all students being ready for college and career. In Denver, we have the Denver Plan 2020. It's our 5-year strategic plan we adopted in 2015. And we have a vision where every child will succeed in our schools. We're committed to 5 major goals designed to close the achievement gaps that we've seen over time in our district and prepare all students for success in college and career. The 5 goals are that we have great schools in every neighborhood in the city, that we provide a foundation for success for all of our students in all of our schools through particularly early literacy approaches, that all students are ready for college and career at graduation. We have another goal around supporting the whole child, and our last goal is around closing the opportunity gap. And I want to give you a little bit of background before we dig into more substance around the new graduation requirements and our process around that. In DPS and in Colorado in general, arguably the greatest change we've seen in the policy landscape in recent years in our state came in 2016 with the adoption of statewide graduation requirements that are mandatory for schools to implement policies that either meet or exceed the graduation requirements handed to us by the state. These do require demonstrations of college and career readiness as a requirement for graduation. Specifically in 2021, so students who are in 9th grade this year, no student will be eligible to graduate without a demonstration of competency in our approved menu of competency options, and we'll get into that as we move forward. And the new graduation requirements have really provided us with a very powerful organizing framework for how we're going to redesign our high schools in DPS so that we can make sure that all students have the opportunity to be college and career ready on graduation. So this is a slide that really talks about why. Why did Colorado adopt new graduation requirements? Why does DPS feel particularly compelled around this? What we know is that our Colorado economy is one of the most successful economies in the nation. And you know, if you look 30 years ago, 40 years ago, the number of jobs that required post-secondary education or skills was pretty low. And what we know is that by 2020 and certainly thereafter, that the overwhelming majority of jobs that our students will be trying to move into in the future will require some post-secondary education or skills. And at a national level, the argument is that in the future, somewhere upwards of 90% of jobs will require some sort of post-secondary training for entry. So, why did Colorado adopt new graduation requirements? Well, we were one of the last states in the country to have a set of mandatory graduation requirements. Prior to that, all districts were empowered to create their own non-standard graduation requirements across the state. And we also have seen, and DPS is not an exception, we've seen that over time, we've done a good job in graduating our students and getting them to stay in school on track to graduate. However, not all of our students have been well prepared for the future that awaits them when they leave us. And so, again, these graduation requirements are important for that purpose. So to get into this, when we started looking at our graduation requirements policy, and you see on this slide a reference to that policy, which is that IKF-R. That is the procedural document in our district that outlines our graduation requirements. And so what we thought about was, what are the tensions that lie within this question? So when we talk about college and career readiness, we first needed to answer the question, can a student be college and career ready? And through our discussions with local, national experts, as well as internally with staff, with our Board of Education, we agreed that the answer is yes, students can be college and career ready. And so then that led us to a set of questions. The first question was, how do we ensure that students entering high school who are off track to graduate and or are not proficient are supported to pursue any or all of the options that we have put forward for them to be college and career ready by the time they graduate? The second question was, how do we ensure equally rigorous menu options that result in viable opportunities for all graduates? And we like to talk about question 2 as, when we put forward graduation requirements and we put forward pathways to achieve those in our schools, how do we make sure that all of those pathways are of equal dignity and that result in a real opportunity for a student upon graduation? So problem 1 is really about ensuring that our students aren't pushed toward perceived lesser paths as they come into our high schools. And problem 2 is really about ensuring all of the paths support students to get to a viable opportunity when they leave us. And so where that's led us is two major strategies. The first one is focusing on students being on track to graduate and increasing grade level proficiency in the entire K-12 pipeline. And that's really all about instructional core excellence and attendance behavior, course success, engagement factors. And the second part of our strategy is what we call our GRIT multiple pathways strategies. In Denver Public Schools, when we adopted our graduation requirements policy, we put together a team called the Graduation Requirements Implementation Team, that's GRIT, and this team convenes on a regular basis. It's a small yet highly empowered team that is authorized to work cross-functionally to ensure that all the rules, procedures, and implementation strategies can be put into place to support our schools in putting these new graduation requirements forward. So this is a little bit about our vision. So we really see these new graduation requirements, we call it our diploma of possibility. What we know is, in the past, we haven't necessarily seen that students who earn a diploma with us are ensured an opportunity when they leave, and so we want to make sure that these new implementation strategies we're putting in place lead to viable opportunity. But this speaks to a continuum. So we start with early literacy, which leads to third grade PARCC success or grade level proficiency, which leads to middle school math and literacy, grade level success, and then we get to the high school experience. And for us, the way we're defining the high school experience is really according to the 3 pillars of our graduation requirements. Let me tell you a little bit about that. The first pillar is comes last in this picture, but it's the individual career and academic plan. This is not a new requirement in the state of Colorado. This is something we've had in place, but we seek to strengthen it. This is really about ensuring all students are supported by caring adults to have goals upon entry into high school through which they structure their academic plan, their course of study, and other experiences that they need to have in high school to be prepared for what they'd like to do after high school. The second pillar of the diploma is course requirements. The picture on the left, also not new for us. However, we've changed that a little bit, and we'll talk about that. But the course requirements that we have here in Denver Public Schools are in general aligned to our higher education admissions expectations in our state. And then the third pillar, which is the new one, is competency. And so we talk about our competency menu of options, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But it's a series of college and career-ready demonstrations that students must achieve at least one or more of in order to gain a diploma starting with the class of 2021. That's the new part. So I'll stop here for a second. If anyone has any clarifying questions about that setup, we'll dig more into the details after this. Okay, we're going to move on. So here is, talked a little bit about the shift, that we have a new requirement around these competency demonstrations. Students are going to continue doing their ICAPs. We call those are their individual plans. They're going to continue to set goals for the future. They're going to continue earning course credit in alignment with higher ed expectations. But the new shift is that they have to demonstrate competency. So, course requirements. In Denver Public Schools, we have a course of study that's required, anchored in the Colorado Academic Standards, which is a combination of the Common Core state standards along with other standards our state has adopted for science and social studies and the non-tested subjects of arts, physical education, music, etc. So prior to the class of 2021, Denver Public Schools requirements named specific courses in each of these areas that students had to take to graduate. Our new requirements are much more flexible for schools so that they can meet their students' needs and meet demand for different courses, and also offer more things like college-level coursework, AP coursework, international baccalaureate courses that fit into these various buckets but aren't prescribed specific course names. In all areas here, we meet the Colorado higher education admission requirements, except that we do not require world languages for our students, although some schools do that within this 8-unit electives bucket. This is the new part of our graduation requirements, and this is where we really dig into how we're starting to rethink school design in Denver Public Schools. So the way this worked is the state gave us a published menu that we either had to meet or exceed. This is our second version of our menu in Denver Public Schools that's going to be published here in the next month. This includes all of the different options by which students may demonstrate competency in order to earn a diploma. And you can see on our menu, we name which of these are generally associated with college access and which ones are generally associated with career access and or both. So let me talk through this a little bit. The way this works is a student who's a freshman now moving through high school must earn one or more of each of these options in English and math. So for example, as a student, if I make the Accuplacer cut score for English, and then I make the SAT cut score for math, then I am eligible to earn a diploma from DPS. So it has to be one or more in the English or math column, or it has to be one of the comprehensive demonstrations in the bottom of the menu, because these are demonstrations that cut across content areas, don't have an explicit English or math cut score, or are considered more of a body of evidence portfolio approach. So that's the technicalities behind our requirements. The other thing I should state really clearly is our guidance to schools is, because we want our students to be prepared for as many opportunities as possible, we have asked schools and encouraged schools to have students meet any or all of these options, not just to focus on one, so that we do not narrow opportunity for students. Okay, we're going to pause there for any clarifying questions that you have.
Hi, I'll chime in with a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Sarah at JFF. Just a question about the qualifying course for concurrent enrollment to meet that. Is there a list of qualifying courses, or how do you determine what does it have to be a transferable English or math course? Is that the requirement?
So the way the guidance reads for us is, so let me answer your question two ways. First, we publish a course master list in Denver Public Schools that associates every course that's available to students, including our concurrent enrollment courses, with different credit types. So the way the guidance reads on concurrent enrollment is it has to be a 100 level or above English or math course, so an English or math credit type, or a prerequisite course to gain access to those courses. So it could be like a 90 level course that would be a prereq to gain access into one of those 100 level courses.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Other questions? All right, we will move along. So now what we've done is enter into a process. One of our instructional priorities for this year, and also moving into the 18-19 school year, is to build a multi-year plan for redesigning the high school experience in DPS. And we're really using the new graduation requirements as our lens or our lever for implementing multiple permeable pathways to college and career readiness for all DPS students. So what we've done is we built a sort of a theory of action, and I'm going to talk to you about that today, and we're currently in the middle of the planning process for what all of the meet or exceed or guardrails will be for schools on what the design elements are that need to be in place to ensure students do have access to multiple permeable pathways, cultures of advising that support all students to be college and career ready. So our strategy is that we need all of our schools to meet the needs of kids in an equally rigorous manner, to emphasize core subject competency, to accelerate access to college courses and the access and the acquisition of college knowledge, and we need to have exposure to the world of work for all of our students with viable pathways to career readiness. The other thing I would say is that I want to explain a little bit this concept of multiple permeable pathways. What we want to do is expand things that we've seen as being high-impact programs or school models already in Denver Public Schools, and we also want to ensure we bring in new ideas or leverage best practice research in these areas. So we want to make sure that our students are supported to access all the options. They're not tracked or locked into specific pathways. They can move between and across options as long as that doesn't put them at risk for not graduating. And we want to ensure that our pathways combine recommended courses of study with options that are on our competency demonstrations menu. And by completing a specific pathway, a student will complete their course unit requirements, they'll meet competency demonstrations, and they'll fulfill their goals in their ICAP. So all of our pathways need to result in college and career readiness that result in a student having an ability to enter technical college, a 2-year or 4-year degree program, and or the military or a living wage job upon graduation. Those are sort of the guiding principles for how we're moving into this work. This slide really references what comes from Dr. Conley's work, and I'll let this marinate for a second. I'm not going to read it to you, but I'll let folks take a second to read that. So in Denver Public Schools, one of the things we have taken from Conley's work is the need to have a student-centered approach. That sometimes as a school district we have pushed programs or particular school models because of our ability to fund them or our ability to put them in place more easily than others. And I think what we want to do now with the Redesigning the High School process is shift more toward a user-centered design process where we empower our schools to do design based on what our student needs are and what their unique characteristics are in their school. So one example of what this looks like. In our district, Tara is part of a team that has expanded early college high school models across our district. And this has come from a proposal process that is generated from schools. So the schools are required to basically determine how they might implement such a model and whether that model is the right model for them. And then they have to go through a process at their school level to do planning and then to come forward with a proposal to the district to actually become an official early college high school model and put that in place based on how they see that benefiting their own school community and how that would work in their own local context. Of course, with a model like the early college high school design model, there are certain requirements that have to be in place, but we want to ensure that that's what the schools are seeking and wanting rather than us imposing such models on a school community. Likewise, with some of the work we're doing on expanding our career-ready pathways across our district, schools come forward with proposals because they want to expand particular career programs in their schools that meet both local needs from an economic development perspective as well as what their students and families are asking for in terms of access to particular program models. And so that is starting to permeate across our system, and it's something we want to accelerate as we move forward into next year in the fall. As we think about redesigning the high school experience in DPS, we have a focus on the three major areas in the middle: coursework, competency, and planning and student agency. And there are a number of components in our district that run across all of these pathways for our students. So let me describe all of them a little bit to you. One is access to college coursework. Right now in Denver Public Schools, we have a pretty aggressive strategy to increase our students' access to college coursework while in high school. And the reason we've done that is because we've seen tremendous success with that. And our students who historically have not had access to college do very well in those classes with us and in partnership with the colleges. Because in general, these are body of evidence approaches that students are demonstrating their ability to achieve at a college level across the design of a course rather than a sort of on-demand sitting for a test that sometimes has not been very productive for our students. So our college coursework pass rate is 86% in Denver Public Schools. And so this is one of our what we would call a super pathway or a very high impact strategy that we are working on that cuts across all of this work. Another one is the capstone e-portfolio. So in our grad requirements menu of options, One of the pieces that the state left flexible for districts is this capstone option. And there's 178 school districts in the state of Colorado, and I'm pretty confident in saying that there's probably 150 or more different approaches to how people are thinking about implementing this capstone. I would argue that the work we're doing in Denver Public Schools creates a capstone process that's very rigorous, that supports differentiated approaches. So our capstone is actually taking shape to have 3 different portfolio approaches underneath it. One is a sort of college access English and math competency approach that again relies on bodies of evidence for students where they can do, it's a very competency-based approach where they can create artifacts, store them in their portfolio, and over time demonstrate that those artifacts meet the state standards in key areas. A second approach under the capstone is a career readiness portfolio that we'll be launching this spring that is a combination of career and technical education, state-approved coursework, combined with work-based learning experiences, combined with students earning relevant industry certifications for their chosen course of study, and then their eligibility to enter technical college is sort of the final benchmark for that portfolio process. And then the third portfolio that we're putting in place is really one that's specifically designed to support our students with disabilities that are impacted academically, and we have developed a transition portfolio that we're going to use to follow students from middle school all the way through high school, where we can track progress toward their transition goals for what they do after they leave high school. So we're really excited about the work that we're doing under our capstone in Denver Public Schools, and think it's very rigorous and also supports, again, our concept of multiple pathways for students to graduation. The third piece, moving to the bottom row, is this notion of career-ready experiences. And so in all of our schools now, all of our high schools across the district, students have access to a suite of programs that are both course-based and work-based learning, as well as a set of essential competencies called Traits of a Young Professional that we have put in place, where our schools can track student progress in the traits of the young professional. Essential skills, really, that are things like collaboration, communication, and their ability to be successful in the workforce. Moving along, student engagement, again, another key component that cuts across, that's critical for students to stay on track to graduate and connected to school. Again, things like attendance monitoring and interventions, behavior supports, restorative behavior approaches, instead of pushing kids out of school, keeping them in, and participation in athletics and activities. And then finally, what I would argue is the foundation of all of this is instructional excellence, and really focusing on the instructional core. We have a set of goals in our Division of Secondary Education that are highly focused on math competency, particularly in the middle and high school at the transition grades of 8th and 9th grade. So what does this look like? Well, as I said before, we're expanding early college models in the district. We're expanding our career and technical ed work. We call that Career Connect in DPS. We branded it that. And simultaneously, we're expanding concurrent enrollment, access to advanced placement coursework, particularly to more free and reduced lunch or low socioeconomic students and more students of color. We have more high schools implementing structured counseling and advising programs, and students are going to be encouraged to explore courses across multiple program areas through the ICAP, this individual career and academic plan piece. And finally, one thing I would say is, what we know is that as students move to and through high school and then on to college, they're more likely to narrow their focus and their program of study, and so that is also one of our key elements that we're keeping in mind as we think about how we do high school design. So with that, it sort of wraps up our formal part of this presentation. We are, as I said, in the beginning phases of this strategic planning process to do the multi-year plan. We're building on all of this work that we've done so far to get to more detailed action plans that will have guardrails for all of our schools in thinking about moving forward to support all of our students to be college and career ready. So with that, would open up to the group for more questions.
This is Cindy. Do you hear me?
Yes, hi Cindy.
I logged on a little late. I apologize. So, quick question. Do you work currently with a statewide CTE, Cover Tech Ed, in your planning process?
Yeah. Do we work with the statewide CTE group?
Yeah. Do you have someone like that? Have you formed? I came in late. So do you have an advisory group that you pull together that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like from college and like the area.
Yes. So for our Career Connect is what we call our CTE. We've sort of branded it Career Connect. But we have an advisory council that's made up of statewide CTE folks, college partners, career partners, folks from workforce, Chamber of Commerce, and other key partners to help us with building out programs that are tied to key industry sectors in Colorado, and also to ensure that the curriculum that we put in place for all those programs addresses key workforce competencies, both from a technical side as well as sort of the soft skills, essential skills side.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. We also have somewhat of a unique partnership in Colorado where there is a standalone organization called CareerWise Colorado that is really building out a statewide approach to the apprenticeship model, and we partner very tightly with them such that our formal CTE programs in our schools are feeders into the multi-year apprenticeship model through which students can continue to attend high school a couple days a week and also work full-time a couple days a week.
So who's running that program?
It's a group called CareerWise Colorado, and they run it in partnership with districts. And so we have we are, since Denver's the biggest district in the state, and we were sort of out in front on a lot of this work, we are the biggest partner now. We have our first set of apprentices this school year. So we've got about 50 students in Denver who are going to school a couple days a week and working a couple days a week and getting paid and typically earning college credit at the same time.
How is that funded, the CareerWise organization? Is it a nonprofit or is it?
Yeah, so it's funded several different ways. So CareerWise, yes, is a nonprofit, and they are funded through some grant programs to kickstart the work, as well as and we are able to leverage our early college high school models in Denver because through the early colleges, you're approved for students to go to school extended years. And so we're leveraging that to support the extended year model for students to gain college credit and work at the same time. And the employers have skin in the game as well and contribute for the training and pay of their apprentices.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions?
So how do you track, this is Cindy, how do you track your data as far as, I know you're looking at different target populations as far as career readiness. How do you evaluate your success, or how are you looking at evaluating your success?
So several different things that we pay close attention to here in Denver. So many of the metrics relative to high school and college preparation and success are already baked into our accountability frameworks. So we have our own school performance framework that we use here in DPS. And so things like well, actually, I'll tell you several of the things that we've talked about within this presentation are actually built into that at a school level, at a student subgroup level, and that is all available. I can give you, it's SPF. Just look up Denver Public Schools SPF, or School Performance Framework.
Okay.
And you can actually go in and look at the individual measures and school reports that'll show you how this is reflected and rolled up and calculated. But the things that are baked in there are, all of the sort of state standardized test scores, but then in our own customized way, we built in things like on track to graduate. So do students have the appropriate number of credits? Are they on track in terms of credit by their class of designation? So that rolls up to a school level measurement that's included in that accountability framework. We track course enrollment and course pass rate measures for things like concurrent enrollment courses, CTE courses, AP courses, International Baccalaureate courses, so that our rigorous coursework that is college and career prep for our students is actually reflected in our accountability framework. And the measures are configured such that they incentivize schools to grow the number of students, and particularly in subgroups that have been historically underserved, to grow the number of students who are both taking those courses on an annual basis as well as passing the courses, their pass rates. Then we also do a calculation within our performance framework that's about remediation free. And so in our language, that means, did a student pass a particular cut point? And we have several things that are baked into that measure. Did they pass a particular cut point to demonstrate that they are college ready? At this point, we don't have career ready measures baked into that. We're exploring what that could potentially look like in the future with our new graduation requirements, since that's such a key part of our competency menu. But the things that are on that menu, like passing an English or Math 100 level concurrent enrollment course, or the DevEd course that's a prereq for that, that's baked into that measure. Scoring at the ACT or SAT benchmark level, that's baked into that measure. Scoring at the AccuPlacer benchmark level, that's baked in. AP scores of 2 or higher on the exams, since 2 is believed to be college ready versus a 3 or above, which is generally accepted as college success. Those are also included. Those are all included in that measure. IB coursework as well, exam pass rates. So we do all of that, and then we also look at, we run a separate set of analyses every year on our college matriculation rates. Where are students going, how many, who, how long are they staying, are they making it to and through, a set of questions around that. And then I think, as we build out these career programs, we set some pretty ambitious goals for the number of students we'd like to see in combined college and apprenticeship programs over the next 5-10 years in the district, and we think there's huge upshot potential there.
So I have another question. When you talk about competencies, I guess part of the challenge, I've worked in higher ed for quite a while, is there any thought about measuring, or what's kind of support around the development of kind of that emotional well-being piece? Because it seems like there's a lot of add-ons here, and I guess my sense in working in public, in higher education is that students are pretty stressed when they are coming out of high school. So is there a thought about, for one, they lose the senior year, many of the students who are college bound. So is there any thought, or what are you doing in Denver, the DPS area, that taking maybe into that into consideration?
Yeah, so a couple things I would just name is we've actually been incredibly fortunate, and I think, Cindy, you said you missed the very beginning. At the beginning, I referenced our Denver 2020 plan. One of the 5 goals in that plan is around supporting the whole child, and we've been incredibly fortunate that our local voters, while our state of Colorado is horrific when it comes to education funding, our local voters have been incredibly supportive in providing us an additional revenue boost through a local approved tax mill levy. And part of those dollars go toward whole child funding. And so every school in the district gets a weighted formula whole child allocation. And there's a whole set of different things they can do with that. Everything from, mindfulness work in their school to, purchasing more social workers, counselors, or using those dollars for partnering with nonprofit groups that do similar work in that space. There's a high degree of flexibility around that. We tied that, actually, we developed, and I was part of the team that developed this coming out of the Denver Plan. We developed a whole child survey that our students take on an annual basis in key grade levels across the district. And then we provide the reports from that survey directly to school leaders and ask that they, do some human-centered design work in their school based, with that as one input point in figuring out how they're going to use those whole child dollars based on, what their highest needs are at their school. Another thing that we've done is we increase funding to schools for mental health supports, psychologists, and social worker supports over time. And then we also have a pretty robust set on the physical health side. We have a pretty robust set of school-based health clinics across the district that, we're some of the first in the country and have an incredible partnership with Denver Health where we provide that as well. So several different things around the wraparound supports work. And then I think, a lot of what we try to do is make sure through our school choice program is make sure that students start in that best fit school placement to begin with. And then, which is a huge launching off place for success, particularly in high school.
Thanks.
Got any more questions, Cindy? We can just keep going.
For sure.
I didn't want to hog. Just sure there's some other people there, but yeah, I really sorry I missed out the first 10 minutes of the webinar. But now, are you going to post your slides, and then will there be contact information if I want to follow up with you?
Yes.
Offline. Okay. That's interesting. The survey, the whole child survey.
Yeah, we looked at some things nationally, but we actually ended up developing our own in-house, and our assessment and research group led that development and did quite a bit of analysis. And I would frankly say, like, I don't think we've actually really nailed it yet. This is our second year of administering the survey, and we continue to evolve on those things to make sure we're getting the right information to support school level decision making.
Well, and I worked in higher ed career services work, actually. I have a strong background in that, and I think part of the challenge is that students are pretty fragile, or in some ways damaged, because there is so much expectation. And again, I'm talking about more of the population and more college bound, where there's a lot of pressure. And Denver Public Schools, of course, you're known for a strong school system, and so the kids, their IB or advanced placement, there's just a lot of pressure on them. And so that career readiness piece, sometimes if you're still dealing with a lot of the emotional well-being pieces, it's hard for them to really think about career stuff. So some of the personal counseling issues that really spill over into that.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, I think that's a balance that I'm not sure we've struck either, and is really what we're after with thinking about these new graduation requirements. Is like, we want there to be enough choice in the options for our kids to sort of meet what they want, so they don't feel like they're either pushed into something that maybe doesn't meet their goals, while at the same time we want to make sure we're pushing the rigor so that they are prepared academically. So it's I'm not sure we're there yet either, but something we strive for sure.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things my team actually does that is a pretty unique approach, I think, to us is we do a process every spring where we do what's called Transitions Day, where all of the high schools and middle schools in the district get together for a single day, and my team does this whole data-driven analysis leading up to that, where we pull all of our projected enrollment information for current 8th graders that are going to head to 9th grade. We project, based on what they've submitted in their school choice applications and whatnot, where they're going to go to high school. And then the sending middle schools, all 8th graders in our district take a risk survey as well. And that risk survey provides some really great information, both around things kids are really interested in. It's more of like an engagement survey, I guess, but it also identifies key risk factors for students. And so it's a really, really robust data set that our high schools are able to get for students who are walking in their doors as freshmen. And then we try to build that into that ICAP process, the individual career and academic planning process across high school, so that our counselors and the folks who are doing wraparound supports with kids at schools really have a good sense of what our students are saying firsthand, what their needs are.
So do all students take that? Is that a requirement?
All 8th graders.
Yeah, interesting. Do they ever get feedback? Is that shared with the students and kind of more cohort?
Really great question. I have never asked that.
I think it'd be interesting. So then they don't feel alone if they are expressing something. So, I always feel like if you do surveys, sometimes it's nice to get the data back. So. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, we do that with a lot of them, but I've not asked that about this. Yeah.
Yeah. I think at 8th grade they could definitely appreciate some of that information from this. So.
For sure.
So it sounds great. I mean, I was really intrigued with your topic. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Caesar.
Okay.
Hey, Caesar.
Yeah, hi. How's it going? This is, I just joined a few minutes ago, you guys. How's everything? I forgot your name, man.
I'm John Albright. Hey, Caesar.
Right. How's it going?
Living the dream.
I know you guys did. The part that I heard was really excellent, you guys. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Glad to do it. Well, lots more to come. We're really digging in, and I think we've got ambitious goals, but we've got a lot of work, a lot of ground to cover.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the millage, was it, that you guys passed? I think that was really significant. That was really a great accomplishment.
Yeah. Well, and you probably know that includes, dollars to expand concurrent enrollment as well as these career and technical education programs. I mean, I think, our local economy is very supportive of that type of work we're trying to do in our schools. So.
Right. That's really great. Really great. Any other questions from anyone? That's great. I want to thank you guys. That was really, the part that I heard, like I said, was really phenomenal. I knew you guys were going to do a phenomenal job anyway. That's not the issue, right?
Thank you, Caesar. And thank you for making it possible for John to do this presentation today.
Thanks for your partnership.
Right, definitely. Well, we have much more to go, right?
That's right. Yep.
This is not the end, but the beginning.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
hey, send me the presentation, Tara, and I'll post it on the
I will.
The community of practice, and Cindy, it'll be listed on the community of practice or anyone else that's on, so you'll be able to download it along with the recording.
Oh, excellent. Great. Since I missed the first 10 minutes, that'd be great, Susan.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys have a good day. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. You did amazing.
Good stuff. That was fun. I think Cindy was the only one on there.
So there were a few other people